a very good welcome to everybody here this evening who's participating in this program with us. And I have great pleasure in introducing and welcoming our speaker for this evening, Mr. Vinay Narkar, on a topic which is of interest to many of us, the forgotten weaves of Maharashtra. So on behalf of the chairman and the trustees of the CSMVS, and the Director General, Mr. Sabyasachi Mukherjee, on behalf of my executive committee and council at the Museum Society, I want to welcome all of you and thank in particular a few people who have made this talk and the talk we heard last week by Umang Hati Singh possible. There was a lot of coordination and I'm deeply grateful to Dr. Prachi Jariwala for the Umang talk and Mrs. Priya Mehta, daughter-in-law of our beloved Aarti Mehta, who helped in connecting us with Vinay Narkar and co-organizing this talk with us this evening. So thanks you to both of you. And of course, I'd like to thank Jason, Yashraj, Rochelle, and Sanjana, our ever-faithful technical team, for being so prompt with all our requests at rehearsals and during the talk itself. So without much ado, may I say a few words to you about our esteemed speaker, Vinay Narkar. Vinay is actually a corporate lawyer by profession, and he graduated from the National Law School, Bangalore. His fascination for silk and cotton fabric and saris, coupled with his passion for handloom, took him to the weavers of Sholapur, where he learned the working and techniques of handlooms by spending time with them and reading books on this subject. Gradually, what was a passion got converted into a profession. Vinay works with the weavers of Gadwal, Pochampally, Vidarbha, and Maheshwar. He likes to experiment with the handloom weaving techniques to make unique and beautiful designs. And you're going to see some really mouth-watering colors and saris this evening in the wonderful slides he's prepared, especially for this lecture. Gadwal weavers are specialized in a weaving technique called kuttu. All these traditional techniques will be discovered and why they compare and how they compare and contrast to each other. I do not wish to stand between Vinay and the audience, but let me assure you that he has worked exhaustively on the research and revival of various textile traditions of Maharashtra. So Vinay, thank you so much for acceding to our request. And we are all looking forward to your lecture and your slide presentation. Thank you very much. And may I now hand you over to the technical team. Thank you. Enjoy the evening.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for the lovely introduction. I'd like to thank all the dignitaries and the organizers, including Mrs. Godrej and Priya Mehta in particular. I'll start my presentation. The subject of my presentation is the forgotten weaves of Maharashtra. This is quite an exhaustive topic, which could include many things. So my focus is going to be on the forgotten weaves, which I have revived. That too, what was the role of Marathi folk literature in reviving these? When we talk about Marathi folk literature and textile traditions together, it may not sound very coherent because these two things have different scope, and for studying these, we need to have different approaches. However, it is very interesting to see how these two streams cross each other's ways. Folk literature is considered to be the mirror of the society. The beliefs, traditions, lifestyles of the society are reflected beautifully in the folk literature. The simplicity of the folk literature should not be taken as its weakness, though. Generally, we see that amongst the intellectuals and the researchers, there is a discourse about the literary value of folk literature. The researchers and admirers of it find it very fresh and full of life, whereas the critics think that the folk literature is an obstacle in the intellectual growth of our mind. After studying various types of folk literature, in Marathi of course, I feel it has to be judged on different parameters. There is another important aspect of folk literature waiting to be explored in a deeper way. It is of tremendous value when it comes to the documentation of textile traditions of Maharashtra in particular. For me, it emerged as a major source of information. There is a long and rich tradition of folk literature in Marathi, like any other language, I must say, mainly consisting of folk songs, verses, which we call Ovi in Marathi, stories, proverbs, ukhane, etc. Famous thinker Narhar Kurundakar has attempted to define folk literature. He says, the literature which enlightens us about our cultural heritage is our folk literature. Going by this definition of the scope of the folk literature gets broadened. Also, it gives us another perspective to look at it rather than going into the literary value of it and create confusion. Cultural heritage encompasses various aspects of our lifestyle, beliefs, traditions, skills, etc. Indian society has always been a world leader when it comes to our handwoven textiles. Our textiles is one of our biggest cultural heritage. It is obvious that it got reflected in our folk literature. This whole thought process made me revisit the Marathi folk literature. The whole process of the study was so interesting, eye-opener, and fruitful at the same time, as it emerged as a major source of information and knowledge for knowing our textile traditions. When it comes to studying our textile traditions, what are the resources available for it? Well, as a researcher, one can visit museums, get information from some books, talk to the experts, do field research. However, these resources fail to create the wholesome picture of our textile tradition. What we get to see in the museum, well curated textile pieces, these are all fine collectibles. These are preserved for the exceptional craftsmanship in it. We can enjoy the higher level of craftsmanship and design achieved by our earlier generations. Such collectibles represent the culture of the elite classes of our society. The culture prevalent in the common people is hardly represented. So the textile culture can't be traced with these available resources. Similar misrepresentation has been happening with the textile traditions of Maharashtra. Historicity of Paithanis could be traced back to the Satvahan era, that is around 2000 years ago. In a way, Paithani is the identity of Maharashtra. However, the Paithani has always been the luxury enjoyed by the elites. Even for the elites, Paithani was reserved for the special occasions. It was not a daily wear for them. Even then, whenever we talk about the saris of Maharashtra, we talk mostly of the Paithani. Rarely other saris are mentioned. It doesn't portray a realistic picture of the textile traditions of Maharashtra. This thought process has raised few questions in my mind. Let's see what are those. What were the feelings of the society at large about the textiles? What were the weaves or type of textiles wore on different occasions? Which were the most popular amongst these? Was there any symbolism regarding the use of colors? What were the type of saris prevalent then? Which were the weaving centers? These issues together forms what we can refer in general is the textile culture of our society. So what is the main resource available with us to study these questions or the textile culture of our society? The answer I found was the folk literature. The nature of folk literature is to preserve traditions of the society where that is born. The folk literature has the intrinsic feature of documenting various things. The symbolism, the rituals, the traditions relating to the textiles together form the textile culture, which is our cultural heritage in turn. And the study of this is facilitated by our folk literature. There are different types of folk literature as we have seen earlier, and going by the definition of Mr. Narhar Kurundakar, many more things could be added to the list. Considering Marathi language, the Lavnis, the Povadas, the Bakhars, and other literature, many types of literature which throws light on our cultural heritage could be taken as folk literature. However, as the scope of this presentation, I am going to concentrate only on one particular type of folk literature, that is the OV, which means the verse or a couplet. Generally, an OV is said in 4 lines. The women in the bygone era, when they had to work very hard, as in when they used to do a lot of physical hard work, singing the OVs was a way of relaxation and a medium of self-expression for them. Most of the OVs were sung during the grinding of grains. The process of grinding on the traditional grindstone was painstaking but rhythmic. The OVs sung on the grindstones got the rhythm of it. They are sung in a particular way. These OVs are the poetic and emotional expressions of women of her daily experiences. It encompasses the whole world of women folk, right from the daily activities to the festivities, weddings, childbirth, and customs. Everything is expressed in these OVs. The joy and sorrows of a female life is expressed in an OV. Just to take a feel of it, we can see a small clipping from a Marathi feature film about an OV. Yeah, the clothing, garments, jewelry, and other adornments are more of the subject of feminine interest. So the textile culture is reflected in the OVs are very effective and poetically it is portrayed. It's not a dry documentation of our folklore, but a poetic preservation of these things. Mr. Kurundakar has emphasized that the importance of the folk literature is dependent on the effectiveness of it in enlightening us about the cultural heritage. And I must say, the OV literature does it better than anything else. The expression in the OVs is as beautiful as our textile traditions are. When I decided to start working on traditional textiles, first I thought of Irkal saris, the identity of southern Maharashtra and especially the region from where I belong to. After the successful revival of it 5 years back, I was in search of a new research topic. I was reading about Marathi textile traditions, and one word was popping up in my mind. That was Kali Chandrakala, as in Black Chandrakala. This word is very well known in Maharashtra. Most of the women from the age of 50 years have heard this name, but were not aware about how the sari looked like. Very few remember the Chandrakala with khadi print. Few refer to Black Paithani as Black Chandrakala. Legendary writer Durga Bhagwat has mentioned in one of her articles that amongst the 9-yard saris, as in the Nawar saris, Chandrakala was of the most importance. She has even said that it was the Paithani of a common people. Chandrakala is the sari gifted to the newly wedded on her first Sankranti. You see, the tradition followed till date. The only difference is the Chandrakala is replaced by any other black sari because of the simple reason that Chandrakala was not available anymore. I was not getting substantial information on the basis of which I could start making my design samples. I referred to many books. One of the book had a photograph of khadi print Chandrakala, but those saris were not very old. I visited few museums. In Kelkar Museum, Pune, the famous Kasuti Chandrakala is displayed. That is an exotic piece of craft. When I visited Baroda Museum, I got to see a photograph of Maharani Chimnabai II in a Chandrakala sari. Famous painter Rao Bahadur Dhurandhar had painted a portrait which is titled as Lady in Chandrakala, A moon and star booty is visible on this sari. This was all the available information with me for the revival of a Chandrakala. As people remember it after so many years, it was clearly a popular sari. But the information available to me was not sufficient for a revival. Many questions were on my mind. Until I get satisfactory answers to it, the revival process would have been quite shallow. So the questions I jotted down, which we could, in a conventional language, we could call these as a research questions also. They were like, how did the Chandrakala look like? What were the colors used for it? What was its character like? What borders it had? How was the pallu of it? What motifs did it had? Where was this being woven? Which market it was available in? What was the price of it? How was the texture of it? What was the fabric of it? What were the occasions on which it was used? What exactly is the concept of Chandrakala sari and how did it acquire its name? In a way, these are not only the questions just about a type of textile. All these issues tell us more about our cultural belief and our aesthetics. It helps us understand our cultural heritage. Coincidentally, I happened to read a poem, Athvanitali Chandrakala, that is, Chandrakala from the Memory by famous poet Shanta Shelke. It talked about the memories of Chandrakala. It had the feel of nostalgia with some information about the customs regarding the Chandrakala saris. That suddenly ignited my mind. That time I thought OVs could have some more information about it. I started looking for the OVs about Chandrakala saris. What I found and how it helped me in filling the gaps about Chandrakala saris and getting answers for my above raised questions will be explained in the next part of my presentation. I found many OVs on Chandrakala during my research. The most relevant and the important ones are included here. The first I would like to see the first poem I would like to start with is the poem by Shanta Shelke, just which I have mentioned. It says, आठवणीतल्या चंद्रकळेवर हळदी कुंकू डाग पडे, संक्रांतीचे वाण घ्यावया पदर होतसे सहज पुढे. It talks about the occasion where Chandrakala is most important. As I said, Chandrakala is the sari gifted to the newly wedded girl on her first Sankranti. But it raises the question, why Sankranti? When we think about Sankranti, Sankranti is not a typical festival where it has religious importance. It is not dedicated to any particular deity. It is not about any religious ritual. So it raised questions in my mind that why Sankranti? It is the festival about the transition of sun. It is a transition of some transition in the nature happening. When I was looking for that, famous quilt artist, Mrs. Geeta Khandelwal, she helped me with the interpretation. She told me that after Sankranti, days become longer and nights become shorter. So the night of Sankranti is the biggest night, and Chandrakala is the tribute to that night. And how beautiful was that? Such a tribute. It speaks so much about our aesthetics of our society. So this poem reminded me of that. And I'll move towards the other OVs where I can tell you more about Chandrakala. This is a very famous writing by Sant Eknath. He was a poet saint, belonged to Paithan from 16th century. He says, Nesalega by Chandrakala Tipkyanchi. The motif where the full moon is being depicted is documented here, and it also talks about the historicity of the Chandrakala, like at least 500 to 600 years old it is. So this is also very important documentation. The next OV is very important from the point of view of the definition of Chandrakala. I raised one question that what was the concept of Chandrakala? After knowing the reason behind the Sankranti and the creation of Chandrakala, what could be the depiction? So these first two lines, Kali Chandrakala, jase Ratriche Gagana. It says that Black Chandrakala is the one which depicts starry night. An uneducated woman who has written this OV did not know that what kind of documentation she is making. Kali Chandrakala jase ratri se gagan. Whatever we see in the night sky could be converted into a Chandrakala. That is the open interpretation of it. So any designer is like it's open for them for their own interpretations. This is another OV. This talks about the popularity of Chandrakala. This talks about how Chandrakala was close to a woman's heart. This comparison I can explain shortly. काळी चंद्रकळा ठेवून ठेवून नेसावी मायग प्रेमळ माझ्या जन्माला असावी. It loosely translates like I should be using black Chandrakala very carefully. It is like my mother. I need it forever. So when a lady is comparing a piece of sari, a piece of textile with her mother, we can understand the importance of it. Similarly, the next OV says, काळी चंद्रकळा ठेवून ठेवून नेसावी कुंकवाची चिरी माझ्या जन्माला असावी. It means I should be using the black Chandrakala very carefully. It's like my life partner. The kunkwachi chiri means it's a metaphor for husband. I need it forever. So it was that intense. We can feel the intensity about loving her Chandrakala. This OVE talks about two important points. It says, Kali Chandrakala Sana Sudila Nesavi. I'll cover the last two lines first. Baya Maji Zada Bharela Asavi. It's like a companion who can share my responsibilities. So it is that close. And the first two lines, they says, Kali Chandrakala Sana Sudila Nesavi. It means you should wear black Chandrakala on for the festivities. Now we all know that what our society has a taboo for black color, but this is completely against that. It says you should wear black color sari for any festivities. It is not mentioned Sankranti here. It is to be noted, or for any festivities. That time I'd seen one interview of Durga Bhagwat, famous writer. She had said in an interview, it's available on the YouTube, she says the color of Maharashtra is black. Maharashtra never had the taboo for black color because the landscape, because of the Sahyadri ranges, because of the basalt, it is the color of Maharashtra. So Maharashtra never had the taboo of black color. So this is the important aspect of the aesthetics of Marathi society. Now, as I said, there are different components of a sari, majorly, unless and until we know what is, we can define a sari, that is a border, a pallu, the motifs. So these are the important components. So how this OV literature helped me in getting a clearer picture about Chandrakala. This is one of the OV which talks about the borders of a sari, border of a black Chandrakala. It says, Kali Chandrakala Ganga Jamani Kathachi Radha Puneri Thatachi. Black Chandrakala with Ganga Jamni border, which is the style of Pune. It says black Chandrakala has Ganga Jamni border. Ganga Jamni border, we know that two different color borders, upper border different color, lower border different color. And on further research, I found that the upper border of the Chandrakala was red and the lower border of the Chandrakala was green. And this was the speciality of Pune. Pune used to wear Chandrakalas. Pune also, there are many other centers also, but the Pune style was the Ganga Jamni Chandrakala. If I had not known this OV, I could not have researched further to find the Ganga Jamni Chandrakala. So this is also a very important OV. Now, again about a border. This particular OV says, talks about Katyari Kat. Katyari, it means dagger. The border which looks like a dagger or the arrow-like designs it has. And till date in Vidarbha, such borders are being woven. So I got to know that like the picture was getting clear how a Chandrakala looked like. This is another OV which talks about border, but it doesn't only talk about border. Everywhere we see the word Kali, but it is here it is Kai. It is not it is a dialect of Marathi. It is an Ahirani from Khandesh region, on the north Maharashtra. So it is not, Chandrakala was not popular only in a particular geographical area of Maharashtra, but it was popular throughout. It is the evidence of that. It talks about Rai Phula Kat. Rai Phula Kat means Rui Phul Kat border, as in cotton flower. Vidarbha is the region where maximum cultivation of cotton happens, and it is the like tribute to that, and that's why it is the main fabric of Maharashtra, cotton. The earlier patterns were in cotton, all majorly saris were in cotton. So it is the beautiful tribute by the designer who has designed the Rui full border, that unknown designer. So that's why this OV is also very important. This is the Rui full border. You can see we have recreated that. Again, one more border has been mentioned. Kali Chandrakala, Kaneri Kathachi. Kaneri, when I research further about what a Kaneri border was, so it is a red border with black stripes on it. Again, it belonged to Pune, Budwarpet in Pune. That was where it belonged to. Now, after borders, let's see about pallu, another important component of a sari. This OV says, Kali ग चंद्रकळा दोन्ही पदर सारक हौशा कांताची पारख. It loosely translates, fine quality Chandrakala is assured with the same pallu on both sides. Now, if we see the tradition of Deccan saris, like right from Hampi Hospet to Maheshwar, we can see similar type of saris, and we academically we call it Deccan saris. And the speciality of one of the specialties of the saris that it has two pallus. It has the pallu of stripes, nothing magnificent about it, but the stripes just look beautiful on this. So this is called Ganderi Padar. And the speciality of the saris, wherever it is, it may be Hampi Hospet, it may be Ilkal, maybe Solapur, maybe Nagpur, maybe Bhandara, maybe Malegaon, and Maheshwar. This has this striped pallu, Ganderi Padar we call it, and if it is properly noted down here that generally it has two pallus, outer side and inside, because when the sari pallu is like worn out, you can reverse the sari and use it by using the inside padar at the outside. So that is the even till date Ilkal saris are woven like that. So it is an important point to be noted here is the both pallu should be similar. Now, if we see the outer pallu is rich and the inside pallu is very simple, it is not like striking anything. So she says that if the sari or a Chandrakala had similar pallu, both the sides, that is of fine quality. So we got to know that there were two. Otherwise, I was not knowing that both the pallus could also be the same thing. And from one more point we got to learn from here is Chandrakala belonged to that Deccan sari tradition also. So that was one of the type of Chandrakala Deccan saris. This is another OV which talks about pallu. It says that Badar Bhingacha Pathwari, it means that the mirror work, it talks about the mirror work on the pallu. So Chandrakala also had mirror work pallu. And we have seen that Chandrakala was also from the Deccan sari range where the simple Ganderi pallu was there, a striped pallu. And now this OV talks about Zaricha Padara. It means the Zari pallu. So it was available in Zari also. So these are two different type of Deccan sari. One with heavy pallu which has Zari, and the Ganderi Padar which generally doesn't have Zari. So these are the two different type of traditions we got to know by knowing these two OVs. This is again an important OV where it says that Tambdi Chandrakala Ahmadabaji Padar. Tamdi means red. In Marathi we call it Tamdi or Lal. All the time we were talking about black Chandrakala. Now one more color is there. I have read hundreds of OVs and I found that only two colors were made in Chandrakala. That one was black, another was red. So maximum OVs are dedicated to the black Chandrakala, few are dedicated to the red Chandrakala, but no other color was there in Chandrakala. It also talks about Ahmedabadi Padar. So it might have influence of Gujarat saris, some of the Gujarat saris, or even it is possible that Chandrakala was woven in some part of Gujarat as well. This we talks about the soft texture of the sari. So it's not very clear what fabric it was, but it says that Potakiti Mo. It means that it has a soft texture. This particular OV says an important thing about the texture of the Chandrakala. It says Nesata Angadisa. That means the fabric is translucent or a diaphanous fabric it is used for this sari. So if we see the Deccan ranges or if we see the Maharashtra saris, nowhere we find this diaphanous kind of a transparent kind of a fabric. And this picture clears it like this Chandrakala was also woven in Chanderi. Only Chanderi has this diaphanous kind of quality. So Maharani Chimnabai is wearing a Chanderi Chandrakala. So one more important factor we get to know that Chanderi also made Chandrakalas. Another OV which talks about the weaving center, it says that Swasta Jhalya Rajapuri Chandrakala. Rajapur is a small town in Konkan. It is famous for the uttariyas it makes. We call it pancha. Till date, it makes very few weavers, but till date, these uttariyas are being made. But nobody knew that even Chandrakalas were being woven in Rajapur. So this is an important documentation again. And one more thing that it says Swasta Jhalya Rajapuri Chandrakala. It means that the prices have fallen down of Rajapuri Chandrakala. As a common lady who generally doesn't go out, or an uneducated lady, she's aware of the markets, what prices are gone up, what prices are gone down. So she's asking her brother-in-law to get a Rajapuri Chandrakala as the prices have fallen. Again, as we've seen the weaving centers now, earlier there used to be different markets. Particular type of saris were available only in particular market. All saris were not available everywhere. So it is interesting to know that this OV talks about Solapur market of it. Solapur was one of the market of Chandrakala. Again, it talks about Miraz. Miraz was also important market for making Chandrakalas available. This is the part where we talked about Chandrakala and an important revival for me. And I am very happy because few more people after this revival contacted me and they told me that their parents or the grandparents had similar Chandrakala and it reminded them, my Chandrakala has reminded them of their belonging. So I was very happy that all these things putting together, making a clear picture and making this, that was worthwhile because it looked like the real Chandrakala where some time back. It is also amazing to see that the uneducated ladies who doesn't usually go out of the four walls was much of fashion conscious, aware about markets, styles, designs. Can't thank enough to these women who have documented this so very well. And moving towards the next story of my revival. This is the latest revival. This story is full of coincidences. And it is a very interesting story because it started with just one word from an OV. This is the OV. So let me tell you about this tradition of the OVs. These particular OVs are composed in the name of Mata Maya, the deity to ward off evil and get back to good health. These songs are supposed to be part of the treatment to the sick and ailing. These songs were sung when someone was sick and in the Naga Vidarbha area. Our good friend, Mrs. Nilima Inamdar, who is an authority on the folk literature, had shared this OV with me last year. Then it raised questions in my mind that what is an Hirva Zot? The Bayamaginesli, it means the goddess is wearing the green zot sari, and another line talks about the goddess is wearing puri bali. Bali is another type of saris which will not go into it, But then it raised the questions in my mind that, yeah, if Bali is another type of sari, Zot must be another type of sari. So I started reading about Zot, but I did not get much of information about Zot. I talked to the textile expert, I talked to the various people in Maharashtra from outside, but Zot, we were not getting the proper source of information in for the Zot sari. One of the book mentioned about Zot sari, but it was not a very proper documentation. It was not very clear. Just it said that, you know, it was made in cotton and silk both, but it was, I think, not a very proper documentation. There was some confusion. Maybe it was taken as a colloquial word for sari, but when I researched further, I got to know that that is again a weaving tradition itself. This is again important book where I got the OVs from the Vidarbha area. When I discussed with the iconic textile designer Rahul Jain sir, so he about this Zot, so he had sent me this image, and the very striking feature of this border, it was written that it's a Jot sari. There, wherever it mentioned, it has different spellings because it's not very well documented. But the main feature of this border is the Ikat presence. Maharashtra is not known for Ikkat. Gujarat, Orissa, Telangana are known for Ikkat. But Maharashtra, we never knew that Ikkat existed. This is not a very evolved kind of a Ikkat, but very minimal use of the Ikkat band. It becomes the feature of Zot sari. It was written that it is from Nagpur, and the particular OV also belonged to the Vidarbha region. So when I started researching further, I found few more fragments from the sites of different international museums. These are preserved there, similar fragments which has similar borders and the Ikkat presence. A very interesting coincidence happened when I was researching about this. I know few antique dealers. I keep on buying few things from them, and same time he sent me this photo of a sari and says that he has got this old sari. If I was interested in it, I was surprised that to see that it was a similar sari, it was similar Zot sari. This was in silk, so I bought that sari, and this we can see the border. It has the Ikkat presence and it is in silk. So the common factors, this was established. So for more information, I was reading more books before going to another books about it. One more OV I got, which says, I will skip the first few lines, directly go to the description, where the description is. त्या बाई नेसल्या हिरवा जोट, as in the goddess is wearing the green zot sari. It says, हिरव्या जोटाले काऱ्या मोऱ्या रेघा. The green zot sari has the black lines on it. So the black rasta, the sari which I bought from the antique dealer, also had the black lines. So we can see that how accurate the documentation about the sari is being made here. Vari vari shiga motiyacha, that is the last line. Shiga means the lines, and motiya means the motichur design. The motichur design is like the white dots. This design, I think, prevalent in all textile traditions in India, but named differently in different pillars. Like Maheshwar called it Mukhda, in Telangana it's called Mochu, in Maharashtra it's called Motiya or Motichur. Again, I got one more reference in a book about a Zot sari, section of Zot sari, extra border, that is written in this. So this much information I had, but it was again and again established that this is a sari from Vidarbha region. Even the OV pointed out that it is from the Vidarbha region. So as soon as the lockdown was over, we decided to head to Vidarbha and for further research. So we went to Nagpur, and most importantly, we been to Indrayani Handlooms. This is a government concern. From like many years, they work with the weavers. They market their products. They help them. It's a major organization. So I met the employees there because they had dealt in the Zot sari. That was my contention. And as I showed them the sari which I had got, that red sari, they immediately said that this is the Jot sari. And like around 1984-85, the production of that sari was not happening, and they never saw this sari after 1984-85. I talked about that sari. They said that the ikkat band present in Marathi, they used to call it chutki, that ikkat band. I asked them about the ikkat band. They said yes, it was dyed in Vidarbha itself. Even in Nagpur, that ikkat dyeing used to happen. And I asked them where exactly this was woven, but they were not sure about it. But they told us few names as Pauni, Bhandara, Umred, Bhivapur, and the old man we can see here in the photograph. He was the oldest employee there. He told us about the Achalpur. He said most probably the sari was woven in Achalpur. So we started our trails there. We met a few weavers in Umred. Umred again had the finest quality of cotton saris made. Now not no, a single weaver is there. 80% of the population was weavers in Umre that made three shuttle cotton saris. A very distinct saris it was. I met the weaver who used to weave. They told us that around 1984-85 whole production has stopped, and the weavers started, they went into catering business. So Umred again has a different story, just I mentioned. And we went to Pauni, we went to Bhandara, and finally, in all those areas, I was getting different information about different things, but nobody mentioned about Jot Sari. So it was clear that that region did not make Jot Sari. So only Achalpur was left. The Achalpur falls in Amravati district. And I read briefly before going to Achalpur. It's called Elichpur also. It is a historical town, very famous, major center in Deccan after Burhanpur. Politically, it was very important in the Mughal era. This has many beautiful historical monuments in good condition. So we met a viewer family there. This family, they are into making cotton daris. It's called tada, and that is also one of the but important thing or the identity of Achalpur. From there is documentation from the Peshwa era. This kind of daris are being made. So this family was consistently into dari making. But I showed them the sari photos. They showed them the sari which I had. They uh, they also identified that this is the sari from Achalpur. They used to call it lugda. That's what they say that, and they established that this particular sari was made like 70 to 80 years before. So this particular old man. He is of 98 years, and he clearly remembered. He had good memory, good everything. He in proper health. He told us that during the independence era, the sari was so popular that every household of the weavers used to make the sari. The demand was so high that it was woven in morning and during the nights also. This was being woven. So this was the important information we got. We asked them for the leads, and they referred us to different weavers. We got to see few more samples of it, like very old samples, which is shown here. And we got to meet this gentleman. He was the mayor of the city, and he belonged to the weaver community itself. So he helped majorly. He was very happy that somebody is documenting this. And he said that he remembers this sari. His mother and his grandmother had this sari, and that was kept specially for, it was wore only on special occasions. And he gave the information that there were twice in the week, on Wednesday and Saturday, the market of Jot sari was happening in Achalpur. And the businessmen from Karachi to Kanyakumari used to come there every week. The master weavers used to make arrangements for them to leave. And but the peculiarity of that market was it used to start at 4 in the morning, and by 6:30 everything was sold. They used to sell like 1,500 saris to 2,000 saris in that 1.5 hour. He particularly said that after 6 to 6:30 you will not even get one single piece of sari. So that was such important sari, and that was such in demand, and it was throughout available. And whatever reasons, we are not into that now, why this tradition was lost. He said that till 1980, 84, this was been made. After that, the sari had stopped. And we decided, we And one more important thing, I requested him to take me to an old weaver who has like woven such saris. So he took us to one weaver who is like 85 years old, Mr. Kamble. And as he saw the picture, this person, the Mr. Kamble, got overwhelmed. He said that this sari is woven by him. He used to weave such saris. Like when he was 15 to 20 years old, he has started weaving these saris. Till 1980-84, he was weaving this sari. He was very happy to see the photograph of this sari after all these years. And he gave us very important information about this sari, like how it looked like, what all the components of this sari was, how was the design, and the particular ikat band, and many things he shared. He was very happy to see the sari again. Probably it was woven by him. We can't say that, but he has woven. He told us that here in my house I have woven this sari. So we thought that we should revive this particular sari. And the ikat band now, I have my weavers are in Gadwal. We started weaving the sari, but the ikat band Gadwal is not known for his ikat. So we got that ikat band particularly from Pochampalli dyed, and it was a challenging thing to fit in here because the type of looms are different both in places. So it was very difficult to, but my viewers made it possible. You can see the Zot sari now, the ikat band is prominent here. This is another Zot sari which we have made. Of course, from design interventions we have done, we never got the information that it was in Zari, but we have made it in Zari as well. So this is about my revivals and my experience about folk literature and the revival of few Marathi saris. Thank you so much.